I think, have you been talking to him?
As you can see, we really struggle with this technology. Why is that screen frozen on me? No, we just had trouble this last 48 hours. Fine, it's all people coming in. Okay. Right, so welcome back. Peter Solvang. I'm going to introduce you to Peter. He's the founder and managing director of DP and Marine Assurance Norway. He's a master on almost all disciplines of DP vessels. He has extensive experience as a master on DP PSV, survey, diving, and ROV trenching vessels. After working with GL Noble Denton for a number of years, he left at the end of August 2014, and accepted the position as Vessel Fleet Manager with Technocean Subsea in Bergen. There he moved to set up his own company, and most importantly, Peter is one of our first E-CMID accredited. What number do you have? You're number one. He's number one. Yes, you are. Number one. So the next hour is over to you. We're going to learn all about surveying DP systems.
Well, not all about it, but a little bit about it. Apologies, I've got a bit of a cold, so if I cough and splutter and stuff, I do apologise. It's part of the Bergen weather, which is very comfortable. So, my name is Peter Solvang, as Mike said. For those at the back, it's quite a big room. There's a recent picture that you can recognise with the bar. I like them green. Okay, let's start. We are running a little bit late, so I'll try and compress it. If I skip over anything, just stop me, it's not a problem. Quick introduction. You can't cover everything about DP in an hour. It's not possible. It's a subject that is immensely interesting. It's evolving all the time. And as I'm sure Ursula, who's in the same business as me, will tell you, it's something that you need to learn over a number of years. But surveyors going on board a DP vessel need to know a little bit about what they're looking at. So this won't turn anybody into a DP expert overnight. I don't believe there's anything exists as a DP expert. But hopefully it'll raise a few questions and provide a few answers for you. The DP systems on board the boats these days are very, very complicated. We're talking commercial vessels. They're very well designed. But it's very often the case that the root cause of a problem isn't the system itself, it's the person operating the system. It's the warm squidgy bit between the keyboard and the chair. So part of our job isn't only to look at the systems on the boat, it's to look at the people operating the system. And there's an awful lot of legislation about the people that are allowed to use these systems. So, I don't know, we're all surveyors, but I don't know who is deeply familiar, who isn't. So if I say something that your DP experience that sounds incredibly stupid and basic, I do apologise, but the person next to you may not be DP advanced. So I've tried to cover all aspects. Please feel free to stop me at any time, or we can take a quick Q&A at the end if there is time. Hillary or Mike will probably shout the wrong screen, but we'll try. Yeah, I run DP Marine Assurance in Norway, and it is based in the wettest city on the face of the planet, Bergen, Norway. That explains the cold. So what is a DP system? Well, basically, it is a computerized system that will keep you where you are, or it'll take you where you want to go. It's a very, very definite precision system. To do that, it has inputs such as gyros, wind sensors, motion references. It receives the information coming in. It then tells the thrusters what to do to stay where it is or to move the vessel where you want it to go. It will monitor the feedback from the thrusters. So the computers are saying, do this, and the thrusters say, we are doing that, and then there is no alarm. If the computers say, do this, and the thrusters say, we're not doing it, it will generate an alarm and it will tell the person operating the system something is wrong, in very, very basic terms. It will also, very importantly, monitor the power. It's not only stay where you are or go where you want to go, it's do we have the power to do this? And it will act as a blackout prevention, as well as the power management systems on board the boat, and it does a whole lot more. So, what is a DP vessel? You can, if you're rich enough and your dreams are big enough, you can get a DP system on your leisure craft. There are DP systems available on your plastic yacht. Cruise boats, they introduced DP onto cruise boats because they were afraid of dropping the anchor on the coral reefs and destroying the environment. So they have DP, shuttle tankers, dredges, you name it. If it's got DP, we can survey it. I've not been lucky enough to go on the small ones, but all of the rest of them we do survey. And provided they've got a DP system, let's go and have a look at it. So we've got a DP boat, we need to survey it. What are the ground rules? The first step is, what do you use the boat for? If it's a leisure craft, you may be surprised, but the leisure craft are incredibly expensive toys. And if they're using DP, they can cause an awful lot of damage. But there is very little legislation. And IIMS and MSA do cover a lot of small craft. We recently did a small craft down in South Africa, fitted with DP2. So they do exist. So let's look at a leisure craft. You won't come across these very often. As I say, I've never seen one. I have seen the brochures, so I do know they exist. But if it's not going to be used for commercial purposes, it'll be very simple. There'll be little or no redundancy. It's there as a toy, basically, to help them park it, I would guess. One interesting point, these small craft do have, if they do have a DP system, they will have a joystick as well. And the skipper will probably wiggle the joystick and say, I don't use that DP nonsense, I just use the joystick. But the thing is, the joystick is issuing commands to the DP computers. So if he's wiggling the joystick, he's effectively using the DP. So don't let them say, oh, we don't use that DP, we're going to use the joystick. We don't care. He's still using the DP controllers. So, if you are lucky enough to go on one of these gym palaces that's got a DP, is the DP type approved? Or is it somebody, his son is a computer geek and he's written it on his computer and it controls the boat? Is it type approved? Does it work? Has he had it serviced? Is anybody trained in using it? Probably not. There is no legislation that says they have to be trained in using it on this type of vessel. The insurance company probably will have some requirements for the computer system, the DP system, and the people using it. So it's worth checking. This boat must be insured. Have the insurance company said, you have to have this, this, or that? Is there any redundancy? Do they have any guidance on how to use it, where to use it? Do they know the limitations? All DPs have to have some kind of position reference to know where they are. Do the people know how to use the position reference? And are they aware of what can go wrong with this magic box? And believe me, there is an awful lot that can go wrong with the magic box. That is a small craft, very unlikely that you will come across one, but if you do, it's just some guidance on what to look for. The vast majority of DP installations are on commercial vessels. So let's assume that you are doing a commercial boat. There are three classes of DP, recognized DP. Some people say there's a DP0, or there's a DP 1.5. There are three classes. DP1, a single fault. There is little or no redundancy. A single fault anywhere on that ship, and we only look at single point failures, can cause a loss of position or heading. DP2, the same single fault, you cannot lose heading or position, excepting fire and flood. And DP3 is top of the range. It will also cover fire and flood, so they have separate compartments for fire and flood, so that a single failure, a single fire, a single flood, you will stay where you are, or you can use the DP to get out. It sounds complicated, but actually it isn't. It's fairly clear-cut and defined what these are. So we'll have a look. Some common DP questions. These are taken from the ECMID. There are some OVID questions later on. There are also DP assurance, but that is quite a different subject. So, note the class notation. Is it DP1, DP2, DP3? It will vary depending on the class society that has classed the vessel. One thing to this, we have endless entertainment with DP2 and class notation. The owners will put out that it is DP2, which it is. But for example, DMVGL have two DP2 notations. So note the one that this boat has. If it is DPS2, is it DP2? Well, the owners say it is, and class says it is, but I've got my doubts. It can be marketed as a DP2 vessel, but a DPS2 vessel has very limited redundancy compared to the Impulse Ultra vessel. For example, a single stern thruster, single failure, losing the stern thruster, they say it has to switch and be powered from the other side of the boat. Yeah, but there is a delay. But what happens in that delay time? Is it DP2? I have no doubts. DP trials. It's not as straightforward as it looks. Class will carry out their own DP survey. It has a class notation, so they have their DP survey just the same as they have their load line, safety radio, and everything else. That's not the one we're looking for. We're looking for the IMCA annual trials, which are the ones conducted under M190, which was changed this year. So if you say to them, have you got a copy of your latest DP trials report, and they bring out the class survey, it's not acceptable. We need to see the IMCA one. So have a look at the last trials report, see if there's any open findings. Category A means it's non-compliant. Category B is it's a deficiency, but it doesn't stop them working. It doesn't stop them. They are compliant, but it's something they need to fix. FMEA or FMECA. Now it's starting to get a little bit interesting. If it's DP1, it's not required to have an FMEA, but it is recommended. For DP2, DP3, they must have an FMEA. It must be class approved. And the approved FMEA and the approved proving trials must be on board. So when you go along and ask them, can I have a look at your FMEA? Have a look at it. It should be class approved on the front cover, as should the proving trials. Write down who wrote the authors and the year that it was written, because your client, we had an interesting one recently where it was a DPS2 vessel and we were sent along to do a DP audit on the boat. It's a long story, I won't go into it, but write down who wrote the FMEA. It's a big industry out there. Certain practitioners are very, very good. Other ones are known not to be good, or not to be as good. So write down or make a note of who wrote the FMEA and when it was written. Have a quick look through. If you can quickly establish in your own head how this boat is designed to work by looking at the FMEA, then it's probably a good one. If you struggle to find out how it's designed to work, where the redundancy groups are, then possibly it isn't. Some survey regimes say, is the FMEA less than 5 years old? It's a bit of a misconception because the FMEA can be more than 5 years old. What the rules and the guidance say is it should be reviewed every 5 years, not that it has to be rewritten every 5 years. So don't fall into that one. The FMEA is a living document, and as changes are made, it should be updated. The rules say it should only be resubmitted for reapproval if there's a major change, not only in the DP control system, but if there's a major change on board. So the FMEA can be more than 5 years old, and that's okay provided it's been reviewed and there's a record that it has been reviewed, has been updated, and it's still current. Does the vessel have procedures for the conduct of field location arrival trials? There should be not only field arrival, there should be watch handover, DP familiarization, 6-hourly checklists, not only on the bridge, but also in the engine room. So if you're surveying a DP boat, don't only check what they've got on the bridge, also check what they've got in the control room. Because it's as important or more important that the guys in the engine room have set the boat up correctly and they are doing the checklist. So check the engine room as well and make sure that they're using them properly. Very often when we go on board, it's a tick box. It's fairly easy to spot if they're just using it as a tick box exercise. You can see it's the same as the previous one they did. There'll always be a question, is it open bars or closed bars? And you can see that they're just not doing it properly. It's something that comes with experience. Good checking. These guys, because they do it so often, it becomes routine, and then it gets repetitive, and then it loses all meaning. So check them, have a quick look. Here's a good one. Does it have on board a DP operations manual? IMO 645 has just been, that was written in 1994. That has now been updated and was released last week. Changes to the DP operations manual are included in the new release. There are more requirements. We as a company do write these manuals for companies. We now have to include all of the extra stuff that's there. But even the old one and the old 605 and the new one say it has to be comprehensive and it has to be vessel specific. Quite often, when you ask this question, they will give you these DP vendors how to use your DP. That's not what we want. We want fully comprehensive, vessel specific, and the new regulations say it also has to be geographically relevant as well. So it's not only about this ship, it's also about this ship and where it is. That's one of the new regulations that come in. It does not have to be class approved. So when you look at the DP Ops manual, quite often it will have a stamp on the front that says reviewed. That's fine, but it doesn't really mean anything. We would never find a finding if the DP Ops manual doesn't have a class stamp on it. It's the contents of the book that are important. So have a quick look through, see what it says. Very often it's a small file with 10 or 15 pages, and that will never ever, it's impossible to do a comprehensive DP operations manual in half a dozen pages. It's a big book. So have a quick look through. See if it tells you how the boat works, how it's supposed to be manned, how it's supposed to be operated. And if the ship is doing a specific job like trenching or diving, is that included in the manual? Yeah, we need to know that the guys on board know what they're doing. Do the DPOs have access to the DP capability plots? It's quite a simple question, really. But you can have hours of fun with this question. It is written down what is required. Capability plots are exactly what they say they are. They're the theoretical capability of the vessel in different configurations. So you have to have one with intact, that's with all the thrusters running and delivering 100% thrust. The loss of significant thrust, it isn't actually a requirement, but a lot of clients ask for it. So we always look for that one as well, to check which thruster they have designated as most significant. You'll be surprised what they say. The important one is post worst case failure. Remember what we said at the beginning, single point failure. For DP2 and DP3, the vessel must remain in position. It's theoretical. It's theoretical. It's all done on software. It may have no relation to reality, but they have to have it there. This does open up a lot of questions. It sounds such a simple question, but it isn't. It opens up a lot. What is worst case failure? The guys on the boat, and we call every ship a boat, often don't know what the worst case failure is on this ship. But every system will have a worst case scenario. Single point failure, you lose half of your systems. The capability plot for this one is the big one, because this is the envelope that they have to work in all the time. If they're sitting alongside a jacket or a platform or a windmill or whatever, they have to know that if they lose half the ship, they can still stay where they are. So if they're operating outside the worst case failure capability plot, then they shouldn't be there. They should be somewhere else, or change the heading or do something. Because their capability plots telling them if they have worst case failure, they don't have enough left to stay. So it's a very, very simple question, but it opens up an awful lot. Yeah, you can have hours of fun with this question alone. The capability plots are based on thrusters have to be able to deliver 100%. Generators have to deliver 100%. If they don't, then you haven't got the power that is written into that plot. So you can ask them, when will your generators last for up to 100%? When will your thrusters last tested to 100%? And so it goes on. These are all requirements. The generators and thrusters have to be tested regularly up to 100%. So you can see why these questions seem so innocent, but they're not. There's an awful lot of digging and entertainment to be had here. If I'm going too fast, just tell me that I'm trying to get it all covered for you. DP qualifications. There are a number of there's a Nautical Institute, there's the DNV one. It is up to the owners to make sure that their staff are fully trained and qualified. But as a guide, also it should tell you in the DP Ops manual the company standards for each rank. But it's fair to say that the skipper should be unlimited DPO, although in some cases he isn't. We've come across quite a few. But I think he should be. There should be 2 senior DPOs with unlimited DP tickets. Check who issued them. And there should be 2 DPOs who are the second man on the watch or second lady on the watch. You should have done as a minimum DP basic course. Very rarely do we come across a problem in that area. The one we do quite often come across is DP maintenance course. There should be a DP maintenance technical course holder on board. It doesn't have to be the chief, it doesn't have to be the electrician, but there has to be somebody on board with that training, which makes sense. Check the watchkeeping routines. 6/6 watches are not allowed. You cannot comply with the hours of work and rest if they're doing 6/6, and especially Norwegian boats, they're doing 6/6. And you tell them that they're not allowed to do it, they don't know why. So you're not in a position to tell them they can't do it, but it's certainly a finding. They're doing 6/6, and they're not in compliance with work and rest. Is the maintenance log up to date? Normally within the plan maintenance system, could spot check that the routines are being followed, that they are, everything is working. It's not difficult to ask them to call up the gyro maintenance log or any other log just as a spot check. Critical DP spares are now covered under the new IIMS 645, should also be in the DP Ops manual. Check that they have a list of critical DP spares on board. Critical DP spares are difficult to define because if a ship is working in South America or whatever, of course DP spares are going to be, they're going to need more, but it's a common sense question. And of course maintenance is vital. This expensive kit is going to keep working. DP incident log. Yeah, I put down, it's a bit like bragging how often your car breaks down, but it's actually an important tool because I don't know if you watch air crash investigations, I do, and I think they're incredibly interesting. If we didn't have this, there would be no experience transfer. This boat had this problem, let's tell people about it so that they don't get the same problem. The big one is the maybe Topaz, which lost both DP controllers and drifted away with divers on the seabed. They identified what happened. Well, Kongsberg said they knew what happened, and then of course the whole industry was told, and a new test was included to remove that. So it is important. They will say, "Oh, we don't have any DP incidents." Nonsense. Any DP ship will have. They will lose something, they lose a thruster, they lose a sensor, they lose a position reference. Just check that they've got something, they've got a logbook, that they use it, that it's something written in it recently. If they know you're coming to do the survey, the good boat will put a few entries in, just so you can check that there's something there for you to read. And it should include little stuff. If they're getting repeated alarms, they'll just cancel it. You can check by looking at the alarm print screen, the alarm print hard copy, and you can see if there's the same alarm coming up over and over and over again. Ask them why. Have they done anything about it? Have they put it in the incident log? So if they've got the log, check they're using it. Quite often you'll find it is a notebook, back of the bridge with coffee rings on it, which doesn't really work. ASOG, CAM, TAM, and PAGOS. These are very, very good, especially the ASOG. This was introduced, it was Shell that recognized, Shell in America recognized that a very high percentage of incidents inside their 500-meter zones were due to human error, operator error. So they said, how do we solve this problem? And they identified that any incident starts at one end and there's a chain of events that leads to a major incident at the other end. What an ASOG does, it tells the DPO what to do in any given situation. So it removes the doubt. At 3 o'clock in the morning, he loses a gyro. Do I call the captain? Do I tell anybody, or do I just, you've got 3 gyros, what does it matter, we've lost 1? It will tell him what to do. If you lose a gyro, call the captain. We don't care, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you get paid a lot of money. Or maybe not these days, but and in the case of, for example, a gyro, 3 o'clock in the morning, he's lost 1 gyro, but he says, I've got 2 more. But what he doesn't realize is the gyro he's lost is powered from one side of the board, and the 2 gyros he hasn't lost are from the other side of the board. It doesn't matter, I've got 2 left. But at 3:30, worst case failure, he loses that half of the boat. He now has no gyros left. The ship will stay in position because all the thrusters are still working, but he doesn't have a gyro. And heading is critical. If you lose heading alongside the platform, you're probably going to hit it. You'll stay in position, but that's the rotation point to stay in position. That is one example. And when ASOG was introduced, the human error incidence reduced by something like 70%. That's how good they are. I'm a great believer in ASOG. It's a decision-making assistant tool. It removes doubt what to do. So, are ASOG guidelines in place and available? Have a look at them and check that it's all there, all the little, check how good it is. CAM, critical activity mode, used to be called the safest mode of operation. Every ship, no matter if it's a 50-foot cruise, your plastic toy, or it's up to a DP3 dive boat, it will have the safest mode of operation. That is the safest way that this ship can be set up. It doesn't matter what kind of boat it is, it will always have the safest mode of operation. So check that they have defined the CAM. There could be more than one. Because you can, for example, have open boats, closed boats. So there will be a critical activity mode for each setup. But in general, it is the safest possible way. TAM is a task appropriate mode. It's a risk-based mode. If you're operating on DP in the middle of nowhere, you can relax things, but it does require you to risk assess each mode. So let's only have 1 man on the bridge. Okay, we've got 1 man on the bridge, what can go wrong? And it's tabulated. Yeah. TAGOS, very rarely you come across it. It is in the guidance, but thruster and generator operating strategy, I wouldn't worry too much about that. But CAM and ASOG, they're the ones to check. Does it have a DP data logger? Some ships have a history station, which is like a black box, but it isn't compulsory to have the data logger. The rules say that there should be a system in place to record the alarms. Normally it's a printer powered from the UPSs that records each alarm. Interestingly, there is no redundancy on that. It only asks for 1, which is strange. But there must be some system in place where the alarms are physically recorded. So check the printers there, have a quick look at the paper to make quite often it's run out of ink and it churns out blank sheets of paper. So just quickly check that it is legible and that the last alarm print is recent. Yeah.
So will that be a yes or a no?
Which?
If the vessel got a DP logger, data logger. If it hasn't, if it's only got the DP printer, is that a yes or a no?
The guidance underneath the question answered the question. I took away the guidance, because otherwise it would have been a full page. But the guidance under this particular question says if there's an alarm printer, that counts as a data logger.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So in this case, does it have a data logger? Yes, if it's got an alarm printer.
Thank you.
There are a lot of big questions in the sea with some very, very good questions. They all sound so simple. Are position reference systems operable? How many? The question is how many? Some ships, I was on a ship recently, that had 10 position reference systems installed on board. The rules say you must have at least 3, of which 2 must be different measurement techniques. So me personally, when I'm asking this question, if they've got 10 and one isn't working, does it really matter? Provided they have the required minimum number, I would make a note to say that the moon pool tour wire doesn't work. But it doesn't matter because they still have 9 more. If they've only got 3, 2 GPSs, and this is very, very common, 2 GPSs and a fan beam or side scan or relative one, and one of them isn't working, the answer has to be no. Because even if they do have 3 working, how are they going to rig the relative one? How are they going to rig the laser? Because they have to get a reflector up onto the structure. So ask them the question. Yeah, you've got 3 references, 2 GPSs and a side scan. How do you rig the side scan? It's quite interesting. It's always a good talking point. It's good to talk to these guys when you're on the ship. Ask them how they do things. These are some overhead questions. Do the vessel procedures require a minimum of 2 GP operators to be on duty during duty operations? Unless the ship is working in TAM, which is the relaxed mode, there should always be 2 on watch. You can check the logbook, you can check the deck logbook to see that these guys have signed at the end of their watch. Check the safety management system, BP Ops manual to check that the company requires a 2-man watch. And as I said before, 6-6 is not allowed. Also check that the watches are staggered. Nearly always they are. If they're on 12-hour watches, they change at 12 and 6 and 12 and 6. If they're not staggered, both leave at the same time, it's not a good practice because you have no continuity. To check that they do stagger the watches. Proving trials. This is an important one. The earlier question said, is the FMEA on board? The FMEA should be accompanied by the proving trials. Now, it's the original proving trials that we want to see. Because these are the ones that set the date for the annual trials going forward, plus or minus 3 months. To have a look at the proving trials. What some clients do, when we do the 5-year repeat proving trials, they send that to class who then approve it, and then that date is reset. But if they don't, the annual trials must be conducted plus or minus 3 months of the anniversary date of the original proving trials. It causes a lot of confusion. And quite often we find that the guys on the ships don't know this. So they just present you with a document. They've just done annual trials outside the window, which then makes it all meaningless. So the proving trials report must be on board. and they must carry class stamp of approval. If it's not approved, it's a finding. It should be approved. Check the findings or the concerns register. Have they all been closed? Have they fixed the things that were found wrong on the proving trials? Does the vessel owner have a designated person with? Ask who it is. They will often say it's the DPA, it's that nice lady who sits in the office. But that's not what the guidance is asking for. Do they have somebody who's designated with DP responsibility? So if there's a DP incident, who are they going to call? Just ask who it is and ask what his background or her background is. And if they say it's the DPA or whatever, then it's worth commenting that possibly they wouldn't be up for a DP investigation. Some companies are very good, some companies are not very good. The designated DP person is either incredibly keen, overly keen, or they know nothing at all about it. Is there a DP control software policy? This is quite a good one. We all know about Most Supply Service got attacked. They were hacked and they lost everything. And there are still some boats out there that haven't got the system back. So the DP software is common to both controllers. If a virus gets in there, it will take down both controllers and it's a really bad day. Do they have a policy and procedures? I was on a ship recently where they had to program a circle around a window and the ship had to drive around the circle. And I said, how did you program that? And he said, oh, we got a memory stick from the client and we stuck that in the DP. And wow, really? You know? Somebody bought on a memory stick and didn't really understand quite what the problems could be. Many DP systems have remote diagnostics. These can be remotely controlled by the system vendor. They can access the DP without you even knowing about it. It's important that the owners of the vessel have some procedures or policies that stop this kind of thing happening, because the results can be quite horrific. If you can imagine that somebody sitting in Norway can access a boat sitting off Chile and shut them down without the guys on the boat even knowing about it. It doesn't happen, or it shouldn't happen, but the possibility is that it could. So just check that they've got something to make the guys on board aware that this could happen. Can the health of the position reference systems be monitored? Sounds pretty obvious, but quite often we go on board the ship, the DGPS monitors over there, and the other DPS monitors over there, and the high path is on the other end of the bridge. How can the guy on the DP desk know what his references are doing? They should be where he can see them. If you can't, what's the point of them being there at all? And it's always a good opportunity to stop and have a coffee, just sit in the DP ship and see what you can see. Or ask them how they do. It's always a good talking point. DP footprints. Capability plots are the theoretical ones. They are what this ship can, in theory, sit in if they have a bad day and lose half the board or whatever. But what does the boat actually do? So what the guidance says is take verifying footprints. It can either be, you can do it manually on a polar plot, or you can push the print screen and then compare, ask them to compare the footprint with the capability plot. Do they agree? You know, it sounds very obvious, but it's common sense. Yeah. Do the footprints agree with the footprints taken this time last year? Or has something changed? All the guidance says is footprints should be taken regularly. If you can divine regularly, I would say once a week, but it's not written down. Is the buzz bar configuration in accordance with the FMEA? Nothing to do with public transport or whether it's on a nice point of view. Is everybody familiar with what we say when we say buzz bars? Yeah. The important thing is the FMEA is written with one specific configuration. That is the approved configuration for this vessel to work. Are they operating in that configuration? If they're not, then they're not working in compliance with their FMEA, and the failure results may be different. So it's very important, check the FMEA, what is the setup for this boat, do the checklist agree with that setup, and are they operating the boat in that manner? It's vital. All the ships, all the owners want to operate with closed bars. 99% of the oil companies hate closed bars and they want to see it open. So what do you do if the FMEA is written for closed bars, but the client wants the boat to operate with open bars? There's nothing you can do except report it. You have to report then that the FMEA is written for closed bars operations, but they want to operate in open bars mode. In theory, they should have an addendum for the FMEA that shows open bars mode, but there's not much we can do except report. We're there to report. So in this case, I would just say FMEA written for closed bars operations only, vessel operates open bars. There is no analysis for this mode. And as we say at the bottom, that's not our call. We're just there to report. Not much, we just record the facts. How are we doing for time? We've gone really quickly.
Another go to 22, 10, 15 minutes.
Is it? Yeah, so we're getting towards the end, which is good, so it's not bad timing. How to survey a DP vessel? It is such a big subject, it's such an interesting subject. Every vessel is different. Every crew is different. And I love going on and doing DP trials and doing DP assurance and talking to the guys on board. Because you can talk the same language. It's immensely interesting. If you are DP, as Mike said, the niche, our niche market is DP. And you said a few things this morning that made very good sense in relation to DP. If you do one, enjoy it. It's a really, really, really interesting subject. If you've got any questions, happy to take them. If you don't, I'm happy not to answer.
Peter, let me ask you a question. So for a surveyor who is interested in moving into this sector, knows that there's some work out there potentially and is skirted around it, what do they need to do? You've got a lot of knowledge to pick up. Where do they go to learn that knowledge?
A lot, I think, depends on their background. It's not something you can pick up. I've got a number of surveyors who, oh, I want to do these DP trials. I want to do these DP surveys. I would say come along with me or one of my experienced guys and see what we do. I have had it that one of the surveyors, he is an ex-DP captain, and he's come along on trials, he's come along on DP assurance, and he said, I didn't know any of that. It all depends on the individual and their background and how keen they are. You gave some very good examples on failure this morning, and the Winston Churchill quote that I love is the definition of success. Have you heard that one?
think I quoted that one last night. But
Yeah.
Did you? The ability to go from,
I think it was at dinner, that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that one, and that is very pertinent to this. The ability to go from one failure to the next and no loss of enthusiasm.
I have another question. Can I ask one other question?
You can.
I
You're the
think
boss.
You're in an interesting position, really, because for a surveyor who wants to move into the ECMID area, which is an auditing process, is different from a surveying process.
Yeah.
What does a surveyor need to do in terms of upskilling? Do they need to go and do a lead auditor course, or what do they need to do?
I don't think there is any lead auditing course for DP.
Right.
It's all to do with background, aptitude, enthusiasm. We have some excellent DP auditors, DP surveyors who have never sailed as master or chief because they're really interested. And for me personally, it's not something I can define to say you must have this. I don't think there is a lead auditing course for DP. It is quite highly regulated now, but I don't know of any. Ursula, have you heard of any? No. It's a case by case. If you want to be a DP surveyor and you want to do these, I would have a look at your background and you as a person and say, come along and see what we do. You may not like it. You may not.
Never stop learning.
Absolutely not.
Every day we learn something.
Yeah, especially on the software. Yeah.
Well, in all fields, but yeah, especially software.
Yeah, we go on some very interesting boats. I was on one last week with 9 retractable thrusters, 12 generators, and they had some very, very strange software that I had never seen before. And asked the guys, what does it do? How does it work? Yeah. And the more they tell you, the more you learn, which then generates more questions. And you can fire back questions saying, yeah, but have you considered this or that? And it is an absolutely, it's a subject you'll never get tired of. If you get into it, you will never get tired of this. If you do, then you're in the wrong business. It is so interesting, and I love it. This presentation probably didn't bring forward the what do you call it, not excitement, but interest that this subject can generate. It is brilliant.
Can I ask?
You agree with it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, Pete?
No.
I deal with small craft. There
Yeah, yeah.
and we get a 47-footer, which has DP in it, because it's using its 2 thrusters. They put pods on now,
Mm-hmm.
and its own GPS, and that's all it's got, and a joystick.
Yeah, the joystick.
Yeah. But nobody tells you how to use it, or what you should do to know it works. Even that is the problem. It comes from the manufacturer. There's your new boat. There's your toys on it. Go away and play.
That's right. That's the
And,
problem.
and what they want to do is go over to a nice reef, not anchor, just leave it there and jump overboard and go swimming right next to your thruster.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
it's that stupid.
It is, but
There's nobody on watch, doing it because we're all playing.
correct. But I heard a story of it wasn't a super yacht. It was something like that, about 50 footer. Yeah. I think it was in Chelsea Docks or something like that. Yeah. And the guy, got a button here that says stop here. Pushed the button. Of course, it all went wrong, and he drove off and damaged everybody else's boat. It's not a commercial boat. How do you legislate against that? And all I could think of was, it's a very valid question, isn't it? If he destroys your 75, and I'm sure he got 75 for that boat, 70 tight there, he must have. Yeah. And some idiot, when it's in a 50-foot,
Comes and does that. Yeah.
he's wrecked your boat.
Yeah.
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 Does his insurance cover it?
Yeah. But there's no legislation or even on build. Doesn't come under it,
Who built
the hin
it?
or anything.
No, is it type approved?
Yeah, no.
No.
CE proof, nothing comes into it. And that's the whole problem.
Yeah. So that's why I put up a few, what if I was doing that, what I would look for.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's the insurance cover. What is the insurance company saying? Yeah.
One question which is related to your job, but also to other highly specialistic jobs.
You said that our job is to report. Yes. But then someone has to take decisions. And the people taking decisions is not so qualified as you are. It happens to me quite often that they say, okay, that's your report. Now, it's good or not? To stop. Because they don't understand.
No.
That's the same for coding, that's the same for DP, that's for any single highly specialist matter.
Yes, but it's one that as a company, again, it's something Mike brought forward this morning. We don't just issue the report. We do just issue the report, of course, but if the client needs further help, of course we will help. We will not make recommendations in that report because it's a factual report.
So do something separate.
Yes, of course it's business, isn't it? But we don't use the report as a business generator. It's if the client, and we do get a lot of clients. If you remember the question about the DP responsible person, quite often they don't know anything. They will come to you and say, what is this? How do we fix this? Yeah, and it may be the DP ops manual, it may be FMEA, it may be anything. And you can give them advice and you can help them. It's a good way of getting good client relations. It's a good way of giving a good product. And again, your thing this morning was excellent. They like you. They've come to rely on you. They treat you as an expert. And I don't believe there is a DP expert out there. There are people who are very knowledgeable in this subject. But if you can assist the client and tell them, yeah, well, if I had that problem, I would possibly do this or that or whatever, they will come back again. But it's a shame that there are a lot of companies out there who don't know. We have clients who haven't got a clue about DP, and they're operating DP2 and DP3 boats 10 meters off a rig. The crew know, but the guys are short. It's a shame. Yeah.
That's why common many highly specialized issue.
Yeah, yeah. It is a very special.
A consulting surveyor can prepare a fantastic report, but then if nobody is able to read it.
Yeah, what does it mean? Yeah, that's right. No, it's. I mean, the question: how to survey a DP vessel? You can stand here for a week, explaining this subject. It's really good.
Excuse me, with the number of vessels laid up at the moment, not a lot of DP vessels.
Yeah.
Is there any legislation about after a certain layup time they have to have a full survey, or is it just up to the owner to?
Well, it's a good question, actually. What the guidance says is the annual DP trials have to be conducted plus or minus 3 months of the anniversary date of the proven trial. Now, if that boat's been laid up and we've brought a few out, it's nice to see boats coming out. We've been involved in quite a few reactivations. If they haven't done their IMCA annual DP trials within that window, then what they should do is the full repeat proven trial. When they reactivate, they should do the full repeat proven trials. And most of the clients will insist on it. But then again, it's not what you want your boat, which has been sitting up for 3 years in cold layer, to take it out and burn it to 100%. So what they normally do is to schedule the DP trials right at the end. When they brought the ship out, she's warm again, they've proved everything's working, then you will run the full trials. If she's only been laid up for a year and they're still within the window, you can still just do the annual trial. Yeah, and we did one recently over in Canada, where she'd been laid up for 9 months and came back out within that 6-month window, plus or minus 3-month window. And that's fine. But if they've missed the window, they should do the full thing again. But most clients will ask for it. I would, if I was a client. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any final question? One more question, anybody?
Everyone happy? Should we go and jump upstairs?
DP Peter, thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted that. I don't want that.